The bridge of the Eternal Supremacy was quiet. Admiral Velkith stood near the main viewport, his four eyes watching the endless darkness of space. His gray scales reflected the soft blue light of the control panels around him. He was bored. He had been bored for a very long time. The Galactic Dominion had ruled this part of the galaxy for 12,000 years. No species had ever challenged them. No fleet had ever defeated them. Velkith had commanded this armada for 300 years, and in all that time, he had never faced a real battle. Just small rebellions. Weak species that broke after a single show of force. It was almost sad. His armada floated in the Kethver system, 400 warships arranged in perfect formation. They were here to remind the local species who owned the stars. It was routine work. Boring work. Admiral, his sensor officer, a young female named Sithara, spoke from her station. Her voice was calm. I am detecting an energy signature at the edge of the system. Velkith did not turn around. What kind of signature? Unknown, Admiral. It is strange. The readings do not match any vessel in our database. Now Velkith felt a small spark of interest. He walked to the sensor station and looked at the display. The readings were indeed unusual. The energy output was massive, far larger than any ship should produce. And it was moving fast. Very fast. Can you identify the origin? He asked. Sithara worked her controls. Her claws moved quickly across the panel. Then she stopped. Her scales went pale, shifting from healthy green to a sickly white. Velkith had never seen her look afraid before. Admiral, she whispered. The vessel is human. The word hung in the air like poison. Around the bridge, officers stopped their work. They turned to look at their admiral. Velkith felt his two hearts beating faster, but he kept his face calm. Human, he repeated. You are certain? Yes, Admiral. The energy signature matches human reactor technology. It is a single vessel. Battlecruiser class, based on the mass readings. Velkith let out a slow breath. Humans. He remembered the reports from 50 years ago. A primitive species from a small planet called Earth. They had only discovered space travel 3 centuries before. The Dominion had sent a diplomatic fleet to demand their surrender, as they did with all new species. It was standard procedure. Join the Dominion or be destroyed. The humans had refused. Not just refused. They had laughed. Their leader, a female with graying hair, had looked at the Dominion ambassador and told him that Earth would never kneel to anyone. The ambassador had been so shocked that he had not known how to respond. The Dominion had decided to teach them a lesson. They sent a punishment fleet to one of the human colony worlds, a planet called New Manila. 4 billion humans lived there. The Dominion turned the surface to glass in less than an hour. They expected the humans to surrender after that. They expected begging, crying, the usual response from primitive species who learned their place in the galaxy. Instead, the humans went silent. For 50 years, they said nothing, did nothing. They retreated to their core systems and closed their borders. The Dominion assumed they were broken, too afraid to fight back. Some officers joked that the humans were probably killing each other, as primitive species often did. Now a human ship was approaching the most powerful fleet in the sector. Speed? Velkith asked. Sithara checked her readings twice before answering. Admiral, the vessel is traveling at 70% of light speed. Through normal space. Not using jump drives. That is impossible. Velkith grabbed the edge of the console. No ship can survive such speeds. The radiation alone would kill the crew. The structural stress would tear any vessel apart. I am only reporting what the sensors show, Admiral. Velkith stared at the display. The human ship was a small dot moving across the screen, but it was growing larger every second. At that speed, it would reach the fleet in minutes. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "All frequencies." The communication officer worked quickly. "Channel open, Admiral." Velkith straightened his posture. He was the supreme commander of the Dominion fleet. He would not show fear to a primitive species. "Human vessel, this is Admiral Velkith of the Galactic Dominion. You have entered restricted space. Stop your approach immediately and prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply, you will be destroyed." He waited. The bridge was completely silent. Every officer watched the main screen, waiting for a response. It came 30 seconds later. The voice was female, calm, and cold, speaking in accented Dominion standard. "Admiral Velkith, this is Captain Elena Vance of the human spaceship Defiance. We have not come to talk. We have not come to negotiate. 50 years ago, your Dominion murdered 4 billion of our people and expected us to break." There was a pause. When the voice continued, it was harder, sharper, like a blade being drawn from its sheath. "We did not break. We prepared. And now we have come to show you what humanity does to those who harm our children." The channel closed. Velkith stood frozen. Around him, his officers were looking at each other with wide eyes. Some of them were trembling. He could smell their fear, sharp and sour in the recycled air. "Admiral," Sithara said, her voice shaking, "the human ship will reach weapons range in 4 minutes." Velkith forced himself to think. One ship. They had sent one ship against 400. It was madness. It was suicide. The humans had clearly lost their minds during their 50 years of isolation. "All ships, battle formation," he commanded. "Power weapons and shields. We will show these primitives why the Dominion has ruled for 12,000 years." His officers rushed to obey. The fleet began to move, hundreds of massive warships shifting into attack position. Energy weapons charged. Shields flickered to life. The Dominion Armada was ready. On the main screen, the human ship grew larger. Velkith could see it clearly now. It was smaller than his flagship, covered in thick armor plates. Scars and burn marks covered its hull, evidence of many battles. Along its side, painted in bright red letters, were words in the human language. Sithara translated them in a whisper. "We do not yield." Velkith felt a cold sensation in his stomach. It was a feeling he had not experienced in 300 years of command. It took him a moment to recognize it. It was fear. The proximity alarms began to scream. The Defiance had arrived. Commander Sithara had served in the Dominion fleet for 60 years. She had seen many species. She had watched rebellions crushed. She had witnessed the power of the Dominion break worlds and destroy entire civilizations. Nothing had ever frightened her. Until now. She stood at her sensor station, watching the human ship approach. Her claws gripped the console so hard that the metal was bending. Around her, the bridge crew moved with nervous energy. They were trained soldiers, veterans of many campaigns. But something about this situation was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. "Pull up everything we have on humans," she ordered her assistant. "Everything? I want to know what we are facing." The young officer worked quickly. Within seconds, files began appearing on her screen. Sithara started reading, and with each paragraph, her fear grew stronger. Humans came from a planet called Earth. It was the third world from their sun, a yellow star in a quiet corner of the galaxy. At first glance, Earth seemed normal. Liquid water, breathable atmosphere, pleasant temperatures. The kind of world that should produce soft, peaceful beings. But Earth was not normal. Earth was a nightmare. The planet had extreme weather. Massive storms that could flatten cities. Earthquakes that split the ground open. Volcanoes that buried entire regions in fire and ash. The temperature could swing from deadly cold to burning heat, depending on the season and location. Other species built their civilizations in controlled environments. Humans had built theirs in chaos. And then there were the predators. Sithara stared at the images on her screen. Creatures with massive jaws and razor teeth. Pack hunters that worked together to bring down prey. Venomous animals that could kill with a single bite. Parasites that ate their host from the inside. Earth was filled with things that wanted to kill humans. Yet somehow, humans had survived. More than survived. They had conquered. The file showed the history of humanity. They had started as weak creatures, small and slow compared to the predators around them. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor. Their bodies were soft and fragile. By all logic, they should have been extinct millions of years ago. Instead, they had become the dominant species on their planet. They did it through two things that Sithara had never seen combined in any species. First, they were intelligent. They made tools, weapons. They learned to use fire, to build shelters, to work together in groups. Second, and far more terrifying, they simply refused to give up. The files describe something called persistence hunting. Early humans could not outrun their prey. They could not overpower it. So they simply followed it. For hours. For days. They walked after their target until it collapsed from exhaustion. Until it could not run anymore. Until it died. Humans did not need to be faster or stronger. They just needed to keep going. Sithara thought about the Defiance approaching the fleet. One ship against 400. Suicide by any reasonable calculation. But humans did not think in reasonable terms. They thought in terms of never stopping, never surrendering, never accepting defeat. She kept reading. The files describe human history after they achieved civilization. It was a history written in blood. Humans fought constantly. They fought over territory, over resources, over ideas. Over things that made no sense to outside observers. They developed weapons of incredible destruction. At one point, they had created bombs that could destroy entire cities in a single flash of light. They had pointed these weapons at each other. Any other species would have wiped themselves out. Humans had somehow pulled back from the edge. They had looked into the face of their own extinction and decided to survive anyway. When they finally reached space, they carried all of this with them. Their intelligence, their stubbornness, their endless capacity for violence when pushed. And something else. Something that the Dominion files mentioned, but clearly did not understand. Humans cared about each other. Not just their families. Not just their tribes. Humans had a concept they called humanity. That extended to every member of their species. When one group of humans suffered, others would come to help. When humans were attacked, other humans would fight to defend them. It was irrational. It was inefficient. It was incredibly dangerous. Because when the Dominion had destroyed New Manila, they had not just killed 4 billion humans. They had attacked all of humanity. Every human in the galaxy had felt that wound. Every human had spent the last 50 years preparing for revenge. Sithara closed the files. Her hands were shaking. Commander? Her assistant was watching her with worried eyes. Are you well? No, Sithara whispered. I am not well. I'm beginning to understand what is about to happen. She looked at the main screen. The Defiance was clearly visible now, a dark shape against the stars. It was not a beautiful ship. It was not elegant or graceful like Dominion vessels. It was brutal, functional, a machine designed for one purpose: war. Across the fleet, she knew other officers were reading the same files. She could hear frightened voices on the communication channels. Someone was praying to ancient gods that the Dominion had supposedly forgotten long ago. Another officer was asking permission to retreat. Admiral Velketh denied the request with cold anger in his voice. "We are the Dominion," the admiral announced to the fleet. "We have crushed 1,000 species. We will not run from one primitive ship." Sithara wished she shared his confidence. But she had read the files. She had seen what humans could do. The Defiance began to slow as it approached weapons range. Its armor plates were thick and scarred. Its weapons ports were already glowing with power. Along its hull, she could see smaller shapes. Fighter craft ready to launch. Missile tubes loaded and ready. One ship. But it was a ship that had been built for exactly this moment. 50 years of human engineering. 50 years of human rage. All focused into a single vessel designed to kill Dominion ships. A junior officer appeared at her station. His scales were almost white with fear. "Commander, I found something else in the files. About humans. What is it?" The young officer swallowed hard. "There is a human saying, 'Do not wake a sleeping giant.' It means that some enemies are best left alone. That some fights should never be started." He looked at the screen, at the approaching ship. "I think the Dominion woke the sleeping giant 50 years ago. And now it has come for us." Sithara said nothing. There was nothing to say. On the main screen, the weapons of the Defiance began to glow brighter. Somewhere on that ship, human hands were moving across control panels. Human eyes were targeting Dominion vessels. Human hearts were beating with 50 years of fury. The first shot was fired, and the battle for the future of the galaxy began. The first shot came from the Defiance. A single beam of white-hot energy cut across space and struck a Dominion destroyer on the front line. The ship exploded instantly. No warning, no chance to react. One moment, it existed. The next moment, it was an expanding cloud of fire and metal. Admiral Velkith stood frozen on the bridge of the Eternal Supremacy. He had seen the readings on that destroyer's shields. They were at full power. Top-of-the-line Dominion technology that had protected ships for thousands of years. The human weapon had gone through them like they were not there. "All ships, return fire!" he screamed. 400 warships obeyed. The space around the Defiance lit up with energy beams, missiles, and kinetic rounds. Enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. The most concentrated attack the Dominion had ever launched against a single target. The Defiance flew straight into it. Its shields flared gold as weapon after weapon struck home. The light was so bright that officers on nearby ships had to look away. The energy readings were off the scale. Nothing could survive such an attack. Nothing could possibly. The Defiance emerged from the fire, completely undamaged. "Impossible," Velkith whispered. The human ship was moving with incredible speed. It twisted and turned through the Dominion formation, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted properly. Its weapons fired constantly. Each shot found its target. Each target died. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Elena Vance stood at the center of controlled chaos. Her crew worked around her with perfect coordination. Weapons officers called out targets. Pilots made adjustments measured in fractions of seconds. Engineers monitored systems that were running at maximum capacity. 3 destroyers, bearing 270, her tactical officer reported. "Firing solution ready." "Fire," Vance said calmly. 3 beams lanced out. 3 destroyers became 3 explosions. "Cruiser squadron attempting to flank us, Captain." "Helm, bring us around." "Weapons, target their reactor cores." The Defiance spun in space, a movement that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. The Dominion cruisers tried to evade, but they were too slow. The human weapons found them, found the weak points in their armor, found the reactor cores that powered their ships. 5 cruisers exploded in a chain reaction that lit up the battlefield. Admiral Velkith watched his fleet dying. In the first 5 minutes, he had lost over 30 ships. The human vessel moved through his formation like a predator through a herd of prey animals. It struck and killed and moved on before anyone could respond. "Concentrate fire," he ordered. "All ships, focus on that one target." His remaining ships tried to obey. They turned toward the Defiance and fired everything they had. But the human ship was too fast, too agile. It seemed to know where the attacks would come before they arrived. It dodged energy beams that should have been unavoidable. It shot down missiles that should have been too fast to track. And it kept killing. On the Defiance, Vance watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. The Dominion fleet was breaking apart. Ships were starting to scatter, losing formation as panic spread through their ranks. She had seen it before. The moment when an enemy realized they could not win. The moment when fear replaced courage. "Captain," her communications officer said, "we are receiving surrender signals from multiple Dominion vessels." Vance's expression did not change. "Log them for later processing. Continue the attack." "Yes, Captain." The Defiance pressed forward. Its weapons never stopped firing. Its shields absorbed everything the Dominion threw at it. Human engineering had spent 50 years preparing for this moment. 50 years studying Dominion technology. 50 years building something better. The shields were made from materials that did not exist in Dominion science. The weapons used energy frequencies that Dominion armor could not stop. The engines produced power that Dominion physics said was impossible. Every system on the Defiance had been designed with one purpose: to kill Dominion ships. And it was very good at its job. Velkith watched another squadron of his ships die. The tactical display was covered in red markers showing destroyed vessels. In 30 minutes, he had lost over 100 ships. 100 ships to a single enemy. It was a disaster beyond anything in Dominion history. "Admiral," Sithra's voice was barely a whisper. "The human ship is approaching the flagship." Velkith looked at the main screen. The Defiance was coming straight toward them. Its weapons were still firing, destroying any ship that got in its way. Behind it, the wreckage of the Dominion fleet drifted through space like a graveyard. "All remaining ships, protect the flagship," Velkith ordered. "Form a defensive barrier." His surviving ships moved to obey. They placed themselves between the Defiance and the Eternal Supremacy. They fired everything they had. Energy beams, missiles, kinetic rounds, even ramming attempts. Nothing worked. The Defiance cut through them like they were made of paper. Ship after ship fell before its weapons. The defensive barrier became a defensive massacre. And still the human ship came on. On the Defiance, Vance watched the Dominion flagship grow larger on her screen. The Eternal Supremacy was a massive vessel, 5 kilometers long, covered in weapons and armor. It was the pride of the Dominion fleet, the symbol of their power. It was also her target. Hell, match velocity with the enemy flagship. Weapons, prepare the tractor beam. Her crew looked at her with surprise. A tractor beam? Against a ship that size? It would require more power than any beam had ever generated. But they had trained for this. They had prepared for this. Every human on the Defiance knew why they were here. They knew what was at stake. They would not fail. "Tractor beam ready, Captain." Fire. A beam of blue energy shot from the Defiance and struck the Eternal Supremacy. The Dominion flagship shuddered. Its engines flared as it tried to pull away. But the beam held firm, held strong. Human engineering against Dominion power. Human engineering won. The Eternal Supremacy stopped moving. Its weapons fired desperately at the Defiance, but they could not break through the golden shields. Slowly, impossibly, the human battlecruiser began to pull the massive Dominion flagship toward it. On the bridge of the Eternal Supremacy, Admiral Velkith stared at his tactical display. His fleet was gone. Over 300 ships destroyed or disabled. His flagship was trapped. His weapons were useless. One human ship had done this. "Admiral," Sithara said softly, "we are receiving a communication request from the human captain." Velkith closed his eyes. He had commanded fleets for 300 years. He had never lost a battle. He had never faced true defeat. Now he had no choice but to face it. "Open the channel," he said. The screen flickered, and Admiral Velkith found himself looking into the eyes of humanity. Captain Elena Vance appeared on the main screen of the Eternal Supremacy. Admiral Velkith had seen images of humans before, but this was different. This was personal. This was face-to-face. She was not impressive to look at. By Dominion standards, she was weak. Soft skin instead of scales, no claws, no natural armor. Her body was small, barely reaching the chest height of an average Dominion officer. Her hair was gray and cut short. Her uniform was simple and dark. But her eyes were something else entirely. They were brown, the color of earth dirt, and they held a fire that Velkith had never seen in any species. Not anger, not hatred, something colder, something more controlled. The look of someone who had waited a very long time for this moment and intended to enjoy every second of it. "Admiral Velkith," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "I am Captain Elena Vance of the human spaceship Defiance. You have something that belongs to us." Velkith forced himself to stand straight. He would not show weakness before a primitive. "I have nothing of yours, human. You have attacked the sovereign fleet of the Galactic Dominion. You have committed acts of war against the greatest power in the galaxy. When our reinforcements arrive, you will be destroyed." Vance smiled. It was a small smile, cold and dangerous. "Your reinforcements will not arrive, Admiral. Right now, human fleets are attacking 17 Dominion military bases across this sector. Your communication relay stations have been destroyed. Your supply lines have been cut. Your government does not even know this battle is happening." Velkith felt his heart freeze. 17 bases? Simultaneously? That would require a massive fleet. Hundreds of ships at least. "You are lying," he said, but his voice was weak. "I never lie, Admiral. It wastes time." Vance stepped closer to her screen. 50 years ago, your Dominion killed 4 billion humans on New Manila. 4 billion men, women, children. You turned their world to glass and expected us to surrender. Do you remember that, Admiral? That was a necessary action. Your species refused to submit to Dominion authority. An example had to be made. An example. Vance's voice dropped lower. "Is that what you call the murder of 4 billion people? An example? Your species would not kneel. The Dominion does not tolerate. The Dominion does not tolerate." Vance interrupted him with words as sharp as knives. "The Dominion does not allow. The Dominion does not permit. For 12,000 years, you have spoken these words to every species you conquered. You have crushed civilizations, enslaved billions, destroyed anyone who dared to stand against you. And you did it because you believed you were superior. Because you believed might made right." She took a breath. "Let me tell you about humanity, Admiral. We are a species born on a world that tried to kill us every day. We survived ice ages that covered our planet. We survived predators that hunted us for meat. We survived diseases that killed millions of us at a time. We fought and struggled and died, generation after generation, for over 200,000 years. And we never gave up. Not once. Not ever. Velkith said nothing. He could not find words. When your ancestors were still learning to use tools, Vance continued, mine were painting pictures on cave walls and dreaming of the stars. When your empire was young, mine were building cities and writing poetry and asking questions about the universe. We split the atom. We walked on our moon. We cured diseases that had plagued us for centuries. We did all of this while fighting each other, while barely surviving our own worst impulses. And somehow, we kept going. She moved even closer to the screen. Her eyes burned into Velkith's soul. You made a critical error, Admiral. You saw soft skin and assumed weakness. You saw short lives and assumed we were primitive. You confused our kindness for submission, our patience for cowardice. You looked at humanity and saw prey. Behind her, through the viewport of the Defiance, Velkith could see lights appearing. Ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. One after another. Dozens. Hundreds. A human fleet that stretched across the battlefield like a wall of steel and fury. We are not prey, Vance said softly. We are the hunters who ran our food to death. We are the builders who turned caves into cities and cities into empires. We are the dreamers who refused to believe anything was impossible. And we are the species that has spent 50 years preparing for this exact moment. She straightened up. You took something from us, Admiral. You took 4 billion lives. You cannot give them back. Nothing can give them back. But you can answer for what you did. The Dominion can answer for 12,000 years of cruelty. Velkith found his voice. It was small and broken. What do you want? I want you to look at your tactical display, Admiral. I want you to see what is left of your fleet. I want you to understand that everything your Dominion built, everything you believed made you strong, means nothing against a species that refuses to die. He looked. The display showed the wreckage of his armada. It showed the human ships surrounding him. It showed that he had no hope of escape or victory. Now I want you to listen carefully, Vance said, because I am only going to say this once. She stood like a monument, like a force of nature given human form. Humanity is coming for the Dominion. We are going to free every species you enslaved. We are going to tear down every slave market and every prison camp. We are going to destroy every weapon you point at innocent beings. And if anyone tries to stop us, we will do to them what we did to your fleet. You cannot defeat the entire Dominion, Velkith said desperately. We have millions of ships, billions of soldiers, thousands of worlds. We have something better, Vance replied. We have purpose, we have unity, and we have absolutely nothing left to lose. She paused. Do you know what makes humans truly dangerous, Admiral? It is not our weapons or our ships. It is the fact that when someone hurts us, when someone threatens our families, we do not stop. We do not forgive. We do not forget. We keep coming until the job is done. She turned slightly, addressing someone off screen. Prepare the boarding parties. We are taking that ship. Velkith felt true terror for the first time in 300 years. You cannot, he whispered. Watch us, Captain Elena Vance said. And the communication ended. The boarding parties came fast. Human soldiers moved through the corridors of the Eternal Supremacy like ghosts. They wore black armor but seemed to absorb light. They carried weapons that made no sound but killed with perfect accuracy. They worked in small teams, covering each other, advancing steadily through the massive ship. Admiral Velkith watched them on the security screens. His guards tried to stop them. His guards failed. The humans moved through every defense like water through sand. They did not kill everyone. They targeted only those who fought back. Those who surrendered were restrained and left behind. It was efficient, professional, terrifying. Commander Sithara stood beside him. She had stopped being afraid hours ago. Now she was simply tired. tired of watching her people fall, tired of hoping for rescue that would not come, tired of pretending the Dominion was still strong. "They are almost at the bridge," she said quietly. Velkith nodded. He had removed his weapons. There was no point in fighting anymore. The battle was over. The war, he suspected, was just beginning. The bridge doors opened. Human soldiers poured in, surrounding the surviving bridge crew in seconds. Their weapons pointed at every Dominion officer. No one moved. No one resisted. Captain Elena Vance walked in last. She looked smaller in person than she had on the screen. Shorter, more fragile. But she walked like she owned the ship. Like she owned the galaxy. Her eyes swept across the bridge, taking in every detail, missing nothing. She stopped in front of Velkith. "Admiral," she said, "your flagship is now under human control. Your fleet is destroyed. Your crew will be treated according to the laws of war. You will face trial for the destruction of New Manila." Velkith straightened his posture. If he was going to be taken prisoner, he would do it with dignity. "The Dominion will avenge this defeat," he said. "You have won a battle, human. You have not won the war." "You are right," Vance agreed. "The war is just starting, but it will not end the way you think." She turned to face Sithara. "Commander, you read the files on humanity. You understand us better than most of your people." Sithara was surprised to be addressed directly. Yes, Captain. I tried to understand. Then you know that we could do terrible things. We could burn your worlds as you burned ours. We could enslave your people as you enslaved others. We have the power now. We have the rage." Vance paused. "But we are not going to do that." Velkith stared at her. "What? We are not you." Vance's voice was firm. "We did not come here to become monsters. We came here to end the suffering, to free the species you have crushed, to build something better than what you created." She walked to the main viewport. Outside, the human fleet filled the darkness with lights. Hundreds of ships. The largest military force humanity had ever assembled. For 50 years, we prepared for this war. We built ships. We trained soldiers. We developed weapons that could break your empire. She turned back to face the Dominion officers. But we also had debates, arguments. We asked ourselves what kind of species we wanted to be, what kind of galaxy we wanted to live in. "You killed 300 ships," Velkith said. "Thousands of my people are dead." "Yes, and I will carry that weight for the rest of my life." Vance's voice was heavy. "But I will not apologize for it. Your ships were here to intimidate innocent species. Your weapons were pointed at worlds that had done nothing wrong. We did what we had to do to stop you." She moved closer to him. "Here is what happens now, Admiral. You will be tried for war crimes. The evidence against you is overwhelming. The verdict is certain. But you will receive a fair trial. You will have the chance to defend yourself. Because that is how humanity does things. And the Dominion? The Dominion is finished. Its military is being destroyed across the galaxy as we speak. Its slave worlds are being liberated. Its leaders are being captured." Vance smiled slightly. "But we are not going to wipe out your species. We are not going to punish your civilians for the crimes of your government. Your people will have the chance to build a new society. A better one." Sithara stepped forward. "Why? After everything we did to you, why would you show mercy?" Vance looked at her for a long moment. "Because mercy is not weakness, Commander. It is strength. It is the choice to be better than your worst impulses. Humanity has done terrible things throughout our history. We have committed every crime you have committed. We have been the monsters in our own stories." She took a breath. "But we have also learned, grown, changed. We have built something worth protecting. And we refuse to lose that by becoming what we are fighting against. The bridge was silent. Every Dominion officer was listening. Every human soldier stood still. There is a new order coming, Vance continued. A galaxy where species work together instead of dominating each other. Where differences are celebrated instead of crushed. Where children can grow up without fear of being enslaved or destroyed. That is what humanity is fighting for. That is what 4 billion people on New Manila died for. And that is what we will build. She looked back at the viewport. It will take time. Generations, maybe. There will be setbacks and failures and moments when we want to give up. But we will keep going, because that is what humans do. We endure. We persevere. We never stop reaching for something better. Outside, the first human ships were already moving toward Dominion space. Toward the slave worlds waiting to be freed. Toward the species that had suffered for 12,000 years. Admiral Velkith, Vance said without turning around. You asked me what humanity wanted. I will tell you now. She finally turned to face him. We want peace. Real peace, built on justice and equality. We want every species in this galaxy to have the chance to choose their own future. And we want to be remembered as the ones who made that possible. Not through conquest. Not through fear. But through sacrifice and hope and the refusal to accept that evil must always win. She gestured to her soldiers. Take them to the holding cells. Treat them with dignity. The human soldiers moved forward. Velkith and his officers were led away. Sithara went quietly, still thinking about what the human captain had said. Vance stood alone on the bridge of the enemy flagship. Around her, the wreckage of the old order drifted through space. Before her, the promise of something new waited to be built. She thought about New Manila, about the 4 billion faces she had never met, about the children who would never grow up. The weight of it pressed down on her chest like a stone. But beneath the grief, there was something else. Something brighter. Hope. She opened the communication channel to the fleet. All ships, this is Captain Vance. The Eternal Supremacy has been taken. Admiral Velkith is in custody. Our mission here is complete. She paused. But our real work is just beginning. Remember what we are fighting for. Remember who we are. And remember that the galaxy is watching. She closed the channel and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, on 1,000 enslaved worlds, beings were looking up at the sky. They had heard rumors of the humans, of the strange species that had stood up to the Dominion, of the ships that were coming to set them free. They did not know yet that help was on the way, but they would learn soon. And they would remember humanity forever.